Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Sussex Sport Weekly podcast. I am Mark Dunford, and I'm joined by Brighton and Hove Albion writers Derren, Howard and Frankie Elliott, and Brighton fan and Sussex World and Worthing Herald columnist Ian Hart. Brighton bounced back from their Europa League defeat with a 3-1 win against Bournemouth after coming from a goal behind. But last night they went out of the Carabao Cup to Chelsea. We will pick the bones out of that performance and look at their trips to Aston Villa and Marseille in the next week. Crawley Town moved up to 4th in League Two with another last-gasp win, this time scoring an added-time winner at Grimsby. They face Sutton United, Doncaster and Wrexham in the next week, in a busy week for the Reds. You can read all about these stories we are talking about today with videos and pictures on sussexworld.co.uk. But we'll start with the 3-1 win at Bournemouth. And Harty, you had a few things to say this week in your column about fans booing when the Seagulls were 1-0 down. What was that all about?
Well, no, it wasn't just the Bournemouth game. It was the AEK Athens game. And look, we are where we are. It's exciting times. The expectation was huge. Us guys in the media, you full-time, me part-time. We did hype it up. Everybody hyped up. We had a pyrotechnic show. But let's not forget, we're playing AEK Athens in the Europa League, right? We gave away a couple of silly goals, but we're playing Europa League football. We're not playing Darlington on a Tuesday night at the Goldstone in front of under 3,000 fans. So if people are going to moan and groan when we're playing Europa League football, then perhaps now is the time for them to find another hobby. Because I'm not saying this is as good as it gets, but this is really good. We need to be positive. We're not going to win every game. We know that. And then on Sunday, again, we went one down. Was it a bit of a hangover from the AEK Athens game? But we win. And I've got a bloke sat behind me, just moaning and groaning for most of the game, even when we were winning. And the bloke's going, "Get effing Pedro on, get Pedro on." And my son turned around and said, "He's on, mate. He's been on." This is a bloke sitting in a £100 seat. So this is not a knuckle dragger. Well, maybe it is a rich knuckle dragger. So we've got to temper our expectations. We've got to realise that this is the most vibrant, exciting squad that we've ever had. We don't know how far they're going to go and what they're capable of, but let's remember where we've come from. If we're going to barrack these people now, God knows what these people would have done to some of the dross I've seen in Brighton shirts in the last 51 years. As I said in my column, I've seen players that should have been treated by a vet, not a physio. I mean, we've had some donkeys in our team. So let's just enjoy what we're doing. We're not going to win every game. We know that. But it's an exciting journey. And go forward and just... I appreciate, and it was the argument I had when I was a fanzine writer. Well, we pay our money. We're entitled to criticise. We're entitled to have an opinion. But age has told me that there's a whole range of opinions, and as Peter Sellers said to Cato, as Inspector Clouseau, there's a time and a place. And I don't think sitting in a Europa League game or in a Premier League game when we've only lost one Premier League game all season, and that's a game that we might have won, on another day, it's not really a place to start really being critical. I mean, Roberto De Zerbi is the best manager we will probably ever have. So let's just enjoy the ride. We're not going to win every game, but, please keep your opinions to yourself, as my school teacher used to say.
Excellent. Yeah, Derren, Derren, what did you think of the Bournemouth performance? I mean, you're going to get a little bit of a sort of reaction after the Athens defeat, aren't you? And there's going to be some tired legs out there. But what did you make of the performance in total?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the first time that Brighton had done, gone from the Thursday to the Sunday transition, and it was a little bit leggy in the first half. It wasn't great, but credit to Bournemouth as well. I think a lot of the time, because Brighton are now competing at the higher end of the table, there is some school of thought that we should be rolling over teams like Bournemouth, and that doesn't always happen. Bournemouth are a very good very good team. And they will cause many teams problems in the Premier Leagues this season. But what I thought was good was the reaction, how Brighton managed to turn it around. And I think there just does need to be an element of patience sometimes. De Zerbi's team create chances. If they go 1-0 down, even if they go 2-0 down, you cannot rule out this Brighton team. And I think the fans need to stick with that sometimes, because the game against Chelsea last night, they didn't score. It's the first time they haven't scored since the FA Cup semi-final defeat to Manchester United way back in April. So against Bournemouth, if there are games like that in the future, if there are instances where they do go behind, I just think they need to just sort of keep the faith, keep the patience, and Brighton will create chances and take them. Even against Chelsea, they should have taken their chances as well. So I think the Bournemouth display, and it also showed how good a motivator De Zerbi is as well. He spotted the issues. Brighton were very deep in the first half against Bournemouth. They didn't get on the front foot at all, and they changed it around after the break. And they then, you saw what they're capable of. They created chances. It still wasn't like a faultless performance, but they did enough to win 3-1 and go up to third in the Premier League. So yeah, as Ian's saying, really, really exciting times, I think, for Brighton still at the moment.
Absolutely. But Frankie, they made their season a bit easier by going out of the Carabao Cup last night. What did you make of that performance last night?
Disappointing, to be honest. Disappointing. I know it's not the most prestigious competition out of the four they're playing in, and I know it would add more games continuing on in it, but I think it was a real opportunity to win a trophy. I think I understand that the European venture is the most exciting part of the season, also the fact they're doing very well in the Premier League, but I think one of the things that would really, inside the club's hierarchy, I think the next step for them is to win a trophy. And I thought they had a really good chance of doing that in the EFL Cup. They're playing a Chelsea team. I didn't think played particularly brilliantly last night. I think they had an opportunity they were there for the taking, especially with the chances that they gave away to Brighton, where they were playing out from the back. They looked very, very clunky. I thought it was an opportunity to go and win that game at Stamford Bridge. And making 7 changes, again, it's a wholesale changes. I think it really disrupts the flow of the team. We saw it against Bournemouth, I think, in the first half. The 9 changes they made from the Thursday's game led to a very slow start. Obviously, they turned it around at half time from some good tactical decisions. But last night, they brought in 7 new players again, and I felt they didn't play badly. They had their chances to win the game. It wasn't a terrible performance, but it looked clunky. It looked very, very clunky. And players like Julio and Carlos Baleba, who are clearly got talent and clearly got promise, they're still obviously getting used to playing both De Zerbi style of football and the pace of the Premier League. They looked off it. And it meant the game got away from them, really. When I think, like I said, I didn't think Chelsea had to do an awful lot to win that game. They created chances for sure, but I didn't think they were defensively sound at all. I think Brighton got them very easily and could have done even more so if they played a stronger team. So last night, to me, reminded me of what Graham Potter's Brighton used to be, especially towards the end of his tenure, which was, very competitive in those sort of games and create chances, but never really take them, never really look like they're going to take the game and dominate and win the game. And that's what I felt the team played like, because of the amount of changes, because of the amount of players, the key players, people like Lewis Dunk, Solly March not starting either, people like that didn't start the game, meant that they weren't ever dominating the game, which they could have done. So for me, it was not terrible. And like I said, in many respects, it like you say, they're out of a competition where many would have felt they didn't want to go very far in anyway. They've got other bigger fish to fry. But I think it's a big opportunity missed, and it's a bit of a shame.
Yeah. Harty, what do you think? Is it a competition they're going to be bothered about going out of, or is it a missed opportunity given like Man City went out last night?
They're very disappointed in these halcyon days that Frankie has to bring the P word up. Is he trying to upset me on a Thursday morning? I'm pleased we went out because I don't want to fall between 2 stools. I think that we're in. We're not going to win the Premier League, but we need to finish as high as possible there. We might have a go at the FA Cup, hopefully after last year's disappointment. And we've obviously, after the blip against AEK Athens, I still firmly believe that we will get out of the group in the Europa League. We always knew, all four of us knew, that the squad isn't big enough. So we have to make sacrifices. And I do think going out of the League Cup, yes, it is winnable. Maybe next year it'll be something if we don't get back in Europe next year. But I just think that the squad isn't big enough, and we can't spread ourselves on all these different fronts. So as much as I hate it when Brighton lose, I hate it when they lose in any competition. When I finally arrived back at Shes Hart shortly before midnight, I wasn't shedding any tears that we won't be playing Blackburn in the next round.
Fair enough. Real test for Albion on Saturday, Derren. Villa away, two sides who disappointed in their first Europa League games. It's not going to be an easy trip for De Zerbi and co, is it?
No, Villa had a bad result last night as well to Everton, so they'll be looking to bounce back strongly. And similar to Brighton, actually, there were a few boos around Villa Park. They got booed off the pitch by some sections of the fans against Everton in the first half, and you just think that's a bit harsh as well. Villa have been on a really upward rise as well. One bad 45 minutes, and the fans are booing them. So it's similar sort of situation to Brighton as well. But I think it's going to be a very difficult game. Villa Park's a very difficult place to go when they're playing really well and the crowd are behind them. So I'm expecting a tough game, but I think there are going to be changes as well. I was looking at that. When you look at the key areas in the Brighton team, like last night, it was Van Hecke, Julio, Baliba and Dahoud. Those key areas in centre-back and those two double pivots in the midfield. And that is very fresh. That is still a work in progress this season. So, you're missing Lewis Dunk from there, Levi Colwell or Adam Webster, who very good last season. And then Baliba and Dahoud, that's, a completely fresh combination. So that is going to take a bit of time to gel. And I expect that to change massively for the Villa game. You're going to have Lewis Dunk back in there, probably Adam Webster as well, maybe, or I think would come back in for that if he's fit. And then you're going to have Billy Gilmore as well. Pity Pascal Gross or James Milner aren't playing. So I think you could have Billy Gilmore and Dahoud. And I think that area of the pitch is where everything starts from for Brighton. And I think it's going to be a big improvement at Villa with those players coming back in.
Yeah, Frankie, Villa have had a decent start to the Premier League. What's impressed you so far about them so far this season? And in Unai Emery, is with De Zerbi and Emery two of the best coaches in the Premier League as well?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's definitely suited Emery to move to a club like Villa, because it's not really spoken about much, but Villa's owners, they're not very loud or outspoken, but they are very, very ambitious. They've spent a lot of money and they put a lot of money into the football club, and they see themselves as targeting Champions League football. And that's what the appointment of Emery did. Was they had a manager there who is, I believe, I know the Arsenal thing didn't really work out, but he's one of the best coaches in Europe. I mean, to win, the Europa League once is an achievement. To do it multiple times shows with the squads that he did, shows the caliber of manager he is. And I think being in a setup, in a structure with Villa that is very ambitious and well run has really suited him. They backed him. They brought in some very, very talented players, and now they've got a manager. Obviously the Steven Gerrard thing didn't really work, but with Emery, they've got a quality manager who can set them up perfectly for games against big teams, similar in a different way to De Zerbi's Brighton. We know that they play well against the big sides because they seem to dominate them. But possession-wise, Emery sets up his teams to catch them on the counter-attack. They're very well organised, they're very defensively well drilled, and they can pick up 1-0, 2-0 wins with seeing very little of the ball, because they can counter-attack so effectively. So I think that's the thing I've been most impressed with, is that ability to do that in any game. We saw it against Chelsea. They actually sat back for most of that game, but came out with a 1-0 win. And I think we can see them doing that again on Saturday. I think we saw it. They did it. I mean, it was an end of season game for sure, but they did it at Villa Park last year when they won 2-1. I think Emery will sort of relish playing a team like Brighton, because that will sit perfectly for him. He'll see a team that will want to keep the ball for large periods of the game, but he'll also see, as we saw against Bournemouth, as we saw last night, that they are susceptible to making mistakes, certainly when playing out from the back, because it's not as fluent as maybe it could be with all these changes that are happening now. So they will see an opportunity to pounce on one of those mistakes and grab a 1-0, 2-0 win. So I don't think they'll fear Brighton like other teams do, because they have a game plan in place, which we've seen used effectively by West Ham already to win the game.
Yeah, definitely. Harty, are you going to Villa on Saturday?
No, I'm not, because I'm going to Worthing against Whitehawk in the FA Cup, because my
excellent.
company's actually sponsoring the game, East versus West, as we're calling it down here. And obviously Greg Lure works for me, so there's a fair chance that he'll win Player of the Match. But no, I'm going to be watching the Villa game at lunchtime, and then heading down to Woodside Road. And obviously, the kickoff time is great for everybody to watch. I know Lewis have got a game. I know Horsham have got a game in the FA Cup. Anyone watching this at a loose end, go out and support your local teams Saturday afternoon. Got some cracking cup ties. I'm confident Worthing will get past Whitehall. We really are due a cup run down at Woodside Road, so looking forward to that. But going back to the Villa game, we've obviously got 8 days that are pivotal. Not so much pivotal for the season, but pivotal for where we are now. Villa away, Marseille away, Liverpool at home. We've effectively got to avoid defeat in all 3 games to sort of carry on the momentum. A little bit of, not respite, but we haven't got Sunday, Thursday. We've got Saturday, Thursday this week. You've really got to look at RDZ putting out his strongest team against Villa and his strongest team against Marseille. And dare I say it, just to be consistent, his strongest team against Liverpool. You know, we're at the. It's only October, but we're at the sharp end now. It's September on say, but we are at the sharp end now. We're playing teams that we're up there in the league with, and after the blip against AEK Athens, we've got to go to the south of France and get a result. So. Not so much rotation, just fingers crossed everybody's fit and raring to go. To be fair, having seen countless Albion players over the years, if you can't motivate yourself for the next 8 days, like the Albion fans who should be looking for another hobby, you should be looking for another club, because these are golden times. These are halcyon days, and we just really need to go. I can see us getting a result at Villa. I can see us getting a result at Marseille. And then, as they say in the boxing world, the Brighton Liverpool game is a little bit of a pick 'em, because they've got a Thursday, Sunday as well scenario. So, but all 3 games really, really pivotal. You almost run out of superlatives and adjectives, but this is a vital 8 days, a huge 8 days.
Yeah, absolutely. And your trip to Woodside Road, you'll have less restrictions than you will when you go to Marseille on next Thursday.
Yeah, a little bit disappointed, but they're probably looking out for the old geezers like me that don't want to turn a corner and end up going into the wrong bar. I've done that several times in my trips around the globe, and it's not pleasant. And I certainly don't want someone throwing a white plastic chair at me at any time. So yeah, I think. Brighton have been criticised wrongly for being overcautious. I think they've had to put these guidelines out there. It's bizarre, because I was talking to Bob Rogers, who's the former president of the RFU, and he was absolutely waxing lyrical about how lovely the people in Marseille are when England played there in the Rugby World Cup in 2007, and he's been down there for rugby matches, and it's brilliant. And from what we're being painted, it's going to be a bad night in Saigon when we get down there next Thursday. So I hope people have been a little bit overcautious. I know the overwhelming majority of Brighton fans will behave themselves. And if you just stick to the directives, I think it'll be fine. That said, it is the 103rd ground I've watched the Albion play competitive football in. and I cannot wait.
Wow.
It's absolutely, it is a dream come true. I've been to Rochdale, I've been to Carlisle by plane, and that's a trip and a half. Shoreham to Carlisle Airport. And now I'm flying from Heathrow to Marseille to go and watch my beloved Brighton Hove Albion. I'm going to enjoy it. And I do feel, I know we probably took AEK Athens lightly, although they probably watched the West Ham video and saw how Brighton could be beat. I think we're going to have the measure of both Marseille and Ajax. So I think we're going to be all right. I'm going for Brighton's first Europa. The first trip to Europe will be an away win.
Wow, there you go. Well, we'll talk about it more next week, Frankie. But what can we expect from Marseille? I mean, what sort of side have they got?
Well, I mean, it was the group of death to start with when it was first drawn. It's the group of crisis at the moment because Ajax are currently in free fall and obviously had those stadium protests after their game on Sunday, and Marseille are in a world of trouble as well. They sacked their manager last week. They started the season okay. Were unbeaten in their first 3 games. They haven't won in their last 3. They were beaten quite comfortably by PSG on Sunday, which is no disrespect, obviously, but still, it doesn't look great for how the season is panning out. So it's probably a good time to play. And like I said, they've currently got a caretaker boss in charge. Don't seem to be a very settled team. They did well last year thanks to the goals of Alexis Sanchez, who we know from Arsenal and Manchester United, but he left in the summer to join Inter Milan. They're struggling for goals since he's gone. They signed Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang in the summer. Again, another one that many Premier League fans will know. He's yet to get firing. They're yet to find a sort of solid 11 that is sort of similar to the team they had last year, but it is full of quality and full of players that a lot of people will know, ex-Premier League players, Guendouzi, Ismail Sarr, Chancellor Mbemba, Renan Lodi, the Sheffield United player who did very, very well last season, Iliman Ndiaye. They've all joined Marseille. So there's a lot of players that will know about Brighton and will have played Brighton before. Probably not played against De Zerbi's Brighton, but be aware of the qualities that the Seagulls can bring. But it is a side, like I say, that isn't playing very well. It's an aging team as well. We know, obviously, of course, how experience can play a part in these European games, as AK Athens showed. But in regards to when they played at Athens, I felt Brighton didn't appreciate that they were playing a team that were champions and were a successful team. This Marseille team is not as successful as it's more star-studded, but much more international players. But it's not got as many winners in it at the moment as the Athens team did. So it will be a difficult game. Like I said, Marseille is a very, very tough ground to go. It's a hostile atmosphere. But in regards to the team they're playing, that Brighton are playing better than them, and they should take that into account when they travel.
Yeah, interesting. So just quickly moving on to Crawley Town. They face Sutton United on Saturday, looking to extend their run of 4 wins on the trot. They beat Grimsby Town last week 3-2 thanks to Danilo Orsi's goal 5 minutes into added time. After Sutton on Saturday, they face Doncaster away on Tuesday and Wrexham at home on Saturday, so a busy week ahead for the Reds. We'll talk about Wrexham more next week, but Harty, just wanted to get your thoughts on the Wrexham story and as billionaire Hollywood actors getting into... Sorry. And do you think billionaire Hollywood actors getting into British football is a good thing?
It's a difficult one because I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I support a football club who are owned by a British owner who actually supports the football club. I think you have to beware of Greeks bearing gifts. You've only got to look at the Glazers and various other people who've owned football clubs. I believe, Pompey have had their fair share of owners that probably wouldn't pass the fit and proper test now. Look, it is what it is. We'll never go back to the days of Bob Lord, Doug Ellis, Manny Cousins at Leeds, Martin Edwards at Manchester United, where we've got British owners who support their clubs and our local people. We at Brighton have got that, and we're very lucky, and long may it rain. Other people have gone down another route. I was at Chelsea last night. They've clearly gone down another route. Chelsea's almost like a tourist attraction. I almost felt at times I was in the family stand with my mate who's a Chelsea fan last night. Big Tone, thanks for taking me up there. I almost felt I could have been at the Tower of London or Madame Tussauds, because it was just full of, full of not people from Southwest London or West London. It was just full of tourists. And the thing that I know we're tight for time, but it's my big bugbear. These bloody signs. Can I have your shirt? The kid next to me had this sign, wanted Mudrik's shirt or whatever, the lad who plays for Chelsea. And he spent more time worrying about holding his sign up than watching the game. Just let's ban them. Let's get them out. We don't want. I mean, there's been times of me watching the Albion where I would have held up a shirt. Is Ashley Neal? Don't give me your shirt. That's how bad things were. But look, it is what it is with these foreign owners. You've only got to look at the Glazers and how they got control of Manchester United with various loans. I mean, that's like something like Find the Lady in Oxford Street going back a few years. It's a very complex trick. I don't like foreign owners, but they're here, so I've got to get on with it.
Fair enough. Derren, have you followed the Wrexham story? What do you think?
It adds a little bit of a drama, and it's certainly something for the media to latch on to when you've got Hollywood actor Ryan Reynolds. I quite like his movies as well. I think he's been in quite a few good movies over the years, and he really seems passionate about it. He spoke a few times where he said, that it's one of the most rewarding things that he's ever done, and you can see why when you get your hooks into a club and when you really get involved in it and you're on an upward curve at whatever level you're on, you get into the characters of the team, you get into all the little nuances and what it takes, and it takes over your life in a certain respect when you're really involved in a football club. And I think he's got a taste of that. Yeah, I don't have a massive problem with it. I think there's, as Ian said, there's so many wealthy owners around these days that want to look and get involved in it, and it's just part of the entertainment business, which football is really. So
yeah. And Frankie, have you watched Welcome to Wrexham? I must admit, I love the show. It's great to follow it, but yeah.
No, I haven't. I think, but similar to what Derren says, I think you can obviously be skeptical about it, and obviously it does mean that the only spotlight the bottom half of the footballing pyramid gets is of Wrexham, and it make fans of other clubs in League Two and the conference will be like, funny enough, the world outside of Wrexham does exist in League Two. But I truly think it's good. It's a good thing because it does create a spotlight, and it allows for more coverage of those leagues, because I think since the Premier League has become this juggernaut of a business, I think the Football League has really struggled to really compete and to maintain having competitive leagues, good quality football, and also teams that can compete in the Premier League once they get promoted. I think it's really been a struggle. I mean, this season is the best example of that. But having teams like Wrexham who are owned by Hollywood actors, it may cause a lot of teams to sort of give a lot of hate towards them. I actually think it does a lot of good as well. And I think if it can be used in the right way, which is what they seem to be doing, as Derren said, they seem to be really enjoying it and giving it their all. It can only be a good thing, because it creates more spotlight on those leagues, and I think that's important.
Absolutely, and a town like Wrexham as well. You look at, if you watch Welcome to Wrexham, the effect it's had on the community as well is a really good thing, sort of uplifting sort of the economy of the town as well and stuff. And that really, it's a really interesting documentary. I really enjoyed it. But
I'll take a look.
From what I understand, Mr. Reynolds and Mr. McElhaney are not going to be at Broadfield Stadium next week, but the Welcome to Wrexham cameras will be. So I'll be there with my makeup on, ready to go. Yeah, just in case. Right, we'll do our score predictions now. Harty, we'll start with you. Aston Villa versus Brighton, first game.
Villa 0, Brighton 2.
Oh, convincing win. Frankie?
Yeah. It's going to be close. I'm going to go for 1-1.
1-1. Derren?
Yeah, I don't think Brighton are quite firing at the moment. They're not quite at their best. I'm going to go 2-2.
Oh, I was going to go 2-2 as well. So there you go. So Harty, you're the most positive about Brighton this weekend. We'll quickly move to Crawley Town. They've got 2 games. Crawley Town versus Sutton. Crawley 4th. Sutton bottom of the table at the moment in League Two. I'm going to go for a 3-1 win for Crawley Town. Frankie?
I'm going to go for a 3-0 Crawley one.
3-0. Cool. Harty?
I'm actually shocked because I thought Crawley were in free fall with all these crypto boys and things, so uncertainty. So I don't really know much about it. So I'll go 1-0 Crawley.
No, good. They're playing some wonderful football at the moment, Harty. That's what I can tell you. And Derren?
Yeah, they are playing good football. 2-0 Crawley. I think 2-0 Crawley I'm going to go for.
Lovely. And they're away at Doncaster, another team who are struggling, but they beat Gillingham last week. They're away there on Tuesday night. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw here. They go away at Doncaster. Frankie?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw on that one.
1-0. Derren?
Yeah, I was going to go 1-1 as well. Yeah, tough travel midweek.
Harty, you know a lot about Doncaster and Crawley. What are you going for?
Can I just say, Doncaster are the worst team I've ever seen in the Football League. I saw them play on the 14th of Feb 1998 at Gillingham in Fans United 2, the heart of football. It was Brighton 0, Doncaster 0. They could still be playing now and they wouldn't have scored either team. It was dross. But I think both teams will do well next week. So I'm going Doncaster 2, Crawley 2.
Lovely. Excellent. And you already showed your hand on this one. You said Brighton are going to win, Harty, at Marseille. But what's the score going to be?
I think we're going to win well. I think I'm going to go Marseille 1, Brighton 3.
Well, lovely. Let's all hope that happens. Frankie?
Yeah, I'm also going to go 3-1 because that seems to be Brighton's favourite scoreline this season. So
yeah, absolutely. And Derren?
Well, I think it's one of the biggest games of Brighton's history, and I think they're going to be up for it. And I'm going to go 2-0. 2-0 win.
2-0. Yeah, I'm going to go 3-0. I'm going to go big. We're all predicting a Brighton win there. So Harty, enjoy that next week, and we'll have some coverage from Harty live from Marseille. Well, I don't know if it's going to be live or not, but we'll have some coverage. And you can catch up with all the latest. Yeah, you can catch up with all the latest sports news covering everything we've talked about today at sussexworld.co.uk. Thanks for joining us, Harty, and thanks, Derren and Frankie, and we'll speak next week.
Thanks, gents.